24th of November 2022. Good morning, Uganda. Welcome to this very beautiful show that kickstarts your morning. It's a Thursday, Throwback Thursday as well, and of course time to catch up on what's happening around as well. Yesterday we did have our parliament that sat, and there was a lot that happened in their discussions, but one thing that really caught my attention, they did launch the 16 days of activism. Now in all this, of course, these going to be quite a lot of campaigns and creating awareness amongst the factors that really have a lot to do with domestic violence. Statistics were put out. Districts that still have the highest number of partners or people who are victims of domestic violence were out there, and the speaker had quite some requests that she had to make these days quite relevant, saying that why wouldn't the launch be happening in some of these districts where the statistics of domestic violence are high. And I totally agree with her on that. But also, again, very many other things happening. We have health workers also again risking it to strike, especially because they have not gotten their risk allowances. Now these health workers are the ones that have been grappling so hard when it comes to the Ebola outbreak, trying to make sure that they contain it. Well, where do you think this is going to take us? I am very, very excited to hear what my colleagues over here have to say about that. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and this morning, of course, I do have Robert, Mollen, and Felix, but also just to hear from Mollen. Good morning, how are you doing?
Well, I'm all right. Good morning to you. It's a beautiful morning indeed, like you put it. I feel like, you know, usually when you're in Uganda, there are a lot of things that also make sense and make you be happy about being a Ugandan. At the same time, there are those ones you look at and you're like, am I in the same country with everyone else? So yes, you look at the doctors striking, laying down their tools. I mean, they have been at the forefront of the Ebola fight, and you know, it's only fair that, you know, government comes in to also help them look out for themselves, to make sure that they are able to be safe, at the same time save lives of Ugandans. But also on a positive note, Honorable Minister General Cheng did come out to say that Uganda is winning the fight against Ebola. The cases are going down. They have a lot handled, especially when it comes to, you know, stopping or reducing contact of the, you know, Ebola virus. So that is some kind of good news, and we could look forward to that. However, we also still ask ministry to intervene and make sure that these doctors are back to work, because that will also go a long way into ensuring that we maintain the status that the minister is talking about us winning this Ebola fight.
Well, there you go. Felix, good morning.
Good morning, Philo. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm awesome. How's your night?
Great.
There's something that's quite amazing that I came across yesterday, and like, does any of you have people they call best friends? Maybe I'll start with you, Philo. Do you have a best friend?
I have close friends.
Not best friend.
Yeah, I have close friends.
Robert? Mollen.
The Bible is very clear, Felix. And there's a scripture forgotten, but you helped me do the translation. Now I'm the pastor, you're the interpreter. It says, so once I came upon that scripture, I said, okay. Translator, please.
So Robert says that though we need to first get where you're quoting from, we can't just translate. that could be your head Bible. But
I'll tell you what.
Yes,
I do have best friends, and I'm actually
they're even
proud.
friends.
They are. It's not just one. I do have best friends, and guess what? They are a family to me, and I look at our friendship and I'm very proud of that, by the way.
I'll tell you why Mollen has close. Now I know why Mollen has.
I didn't say close, okay. I said best.
Now I know why, you know, and I'm okay, I'm not Mollen, but there are people who normally call themselves best friends, and not Mollen, by the way. I'm not talking about Mollen. Those people normally are like people you hang out with, like
no, those are close friends probably, or just friends. But best friends a best friend goes beyond, you know, just hanging out.
You know, it's sort of
they're
like
family.
Yeah, the family.
Yeah.
But I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and they seemed to question, best friend wange, best friend wange, just like one of the Uganda songs says. I know Robert knows that song. That song they say best friend wo yo go love. This was a woman. So and she told me exactly. So there are these whole stories, and instead of like it was like a shocker for me, like there are many same scenarios where best friends have taken people's husbands and wives. Have you heard of such stories, Philo?
Yes, I have, but...
Do you still want best friends?
Well, then that clearly shows that they're not your best friends.
Absolutely.
I believe in the whole narrative of best friends. There are people who would actually vouch for the kind of relationship that they've had with others to consider them best friends. But then there are also those others that will give you quite a sketchy outlook of what a best friend is.
Human beings are always human beings. At some point they fall short of...
Felix, you have trust issues. I'm
happy too. I am happy too. Man, how can you survive in this world without issues of trusting people? Trust me, even the people we...
But anyway, to see also best friend thing, I think it's friendship is a two-way.
Yeah.
For someone to make you their best friend or call you their best friend, you should have had a certain contribution to their life. Now, probably Felix's experience is about the fact that he hasn't connected with friends more than a surface level. Maybe that's why you can't have someone as your best friend, because you always have your friendship on just a hi, let's hang out.
Robert?
But some friendships, by the time you call someone a best friend,
Uncle
they have
Bob.
had a lot of contribution
Well, Uncle Bob
to your life. And guess what?
Robert, good morning.
You guys are just living in a different
Well, the
world.
only problem is Mollen has come to the school when sweaters are finished.
So
and stuff.
you give her a shot.
But we shall try and improvise to more uniform. Otherwise, for me, I learned one thing. I have close friends. Close friends that I'll give him, but I always at the back of my mind, I don't entirely say Mara Munyo because I know, and I'm never shocked.
But who hurt you, gentlemen?
Someone had
No, we are just being real. That's a real.
Someone can be my very close friend, even when I'm sharing things. And this is funny of women, that you find you have this so much friend who even comes to your bedroom. Even if your husband...
So if it's a problem for the women, mostly for the women, you gentlemen, why are you having the... Shouldn't we be the ones worried about that?
If man messed against God the Creator, Adam, who would see God and he would come in the garden in the evening, they take a cup of tea, they eat together bananas, nanas, and all that with God, then God goes back.
Okay.
But he kept the woman you gave me, so you always must understand. To avoid depression, stress, and all this, for me there is nothing Son of Man can do to me. Because I always know that something can happen. So I don't give wholeheartedly. The things I keep to myself.
Are you sure?
Yes, and time has proved to me that at some time, where others are shocked, I'm like, me, I knew that time may come.
Since today is throwback, let me just give you one of those examples. Way back in school, you used to have like those titles, and you would move together when break even the bell. You wait for them, but you're in different classes. Come on, then the guy comes, you all hold hands. Then you have this common enemy. Man, you find the guy with a common enemy and you're like, what was the agreement? Why are you with the enemy forces?
I don't know where this comes from.
my first betrayal in life.
Childhood betrayals.
Because I brought back Thursday.
But
My first betrayal was in school when, and I think I've ever mentioned this, because there's a way it taught me in life. When we agreed that this mathematics teacher was called Mr. Fred Chijambu, would never leave class on time, and we say, let's all shout, it's time. Know that way of doing it. Man, we had like a group, we were known how we dare anything and all that. These guys kept quiet. And it was only me who came out, time. Then they told me, okay, Kirabo,
and that's what the realities of life is. You know how your mother used to tell you all the time.
Yes.
All the time. Now is when I understand such things when you grow
Mollen,
up.
I think you can see that we're dealing with men who still have unsorted trauma, and we need to find a way of helping them
biggest
through
problem
it.
as
I am
human
actually
beings.
coming up with a conclusion that
I'm
Robert and
worried. I'm worried
Felix
for them. This
had
trauma
bad
needs to leave
experiences
you
from
and
childhood.
move
Robert
on.
talks about, you know, something that happened in class. He talks about something that happened
P2
in
G,
P2.
G, to be very
P2,
specific.
As in
you're
P2,
still-
I had to go for my friend, but the
P2,
nigga.
and you're still on that
And I
same
met
issue.
the guy
You guys
buying
need to
rice
deal
with the
with
enemy
this.
forces, man. Who does that?
Philomena, I actually think we need to get them some kind of therapy or
Yes,
something. You need to
they
get over
need
it
to-
and make
So let me
friends.
also ask Felix, or not let me ask these ladies, would you hate someone because you're called bestie, hello bestie, hates that person, palanirako?
Oh yeah, I
course.
would definitely do it.
Yes.
Without questioning.
That's what forces are.
That's what a best
That's
friend
what
is
a best
supposed to
friend
be.
is.
Someone hates someone,
Yeah.
hate them too.
Your enemy is my enemy. It's as simple as that.
Your enemy can only be my enemy when we share a common
Well,
thing.
it is good morning.
For me, you just give me a command. Like, Felix, to do me. I'm like,
Clearly,
over for
it is
what?
a
Over
throwback
what?
Thursday.
You would actually make a
So
good
what
best
I
friend. Felix would actually make a
For
good
me-
best
Trust me,
I think
for me,
Felix would make a good
I
don't
best
ask
friend, but-
reasons.
Yes.
and
Do we
by
like
the
this
way,
person? Do we
that's
not
who I
like
am.
this person?
Philo, you come, you tell me.
Yes.
Katsas, we are attacking Robert.
Eh.
I don't ask for what. I understand those things when you have.
Now I see.
That's how I do things.
Make a good
Well-
best friend. I can't imagine people are losing out.
I'm
on
a ride or
having
die.
you.
But also childhood friendships
That's why
were
I
very
hurt so much
nice.
when people betray me. Because I'm like,
But childhood friendships were really
How
good.
do you give that
The
guy some of
betrayals,
your
we need
rice,
to
man?
forgive- Felix,
Ah.
we need to forgive the childhood betrayals. And then we appreciate the
I am
friendships we had.
keeping those grudges.
Anyway, we're going to go through some of our
those five.
stories locally and international, but later on, we have to deal with Felix's trauma. This is not good. It could be a hiccup. You need to let it go and move on.
But not easy.
Yeah, Robert, what do we have in our local stories?
Well, at least we have no story about betrayal. We just have good news where the Minister for Health, Dr. Jane Ruth Chen, revealed that the country is progressing in the fight against Ebola. She said the cases are going down daily. Acheng said this during the second annual Health Promotion and Education Conference under the theme Strengthening Primary Health Care through Sustainable Health Promotion and Disease Prevention that was held at Speak Resort Hotel in Nyonyintono. The minister emphasized that there is need for focusing on preventive measures, especially by empowering communities. This was during the conference where she launched 4 strategic forms of community health innovation.
We're now looking at Ugandan Parliament, where we see Speaker of Parliament Anita Mong, who did call for spirited action on inclusion of men and equal fights for rights while tackling issues of gender-based violence. Speaker Anita says joint action on gender-based violence should not only focus on women and girls, but rather boys and men, since they are also silent victims of gender-based violence. Now, Bukedi and Acholi region have maintained their position on the list of action against gender-based violence. The report handed over to the Speaker of Parliament indicates that at least 48% of intimate partners in Bukedi region have been subjected to GBV, followed by 47% of in Acholi and 33% in Elgon region and 8% in South Uganda. The report of 2021.
And moving on, still on the local scene, the Islamic Electoral Commission at the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council, led by its chairperson Omar Waiswa Mohammed, has appealed to the Muslim community in Muslim districts for being serious and urged them to embrace the ongoing national Muslim elections. The electoral process is left with voting for the General Assembly tomorrow, which is voting for the General Assembly today, and the youth, plus the female representatives who will be voted on Saturday respectively.
All police is hunting for suspects who allegedly attempted to attack Nakurebe police station in Kampala. It is alleged that the station guard on duty spotted unidentified armed persons approaching the station. He opened fire against them, forcing them to flee and abandon an AK-47 magazine with 5 rounds of ammunition. Deputy Police Spokesperson of Kampala Metropolitan Luko Weside did confirm the incident.
Now, elsewhere, President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of crimes against humanity after a new missile barrage caused blackouts across Ukraine. He told the UN Security Council via video link that the Russian formula of terror had forced millions of people to stay without energy supplies, without heating, without water, in sub-zero cold. The 3 plants still under Ukrainian control were disconnected from the grid, and the Zaporizhia plant, Europe's largest, was forced again to rely on diesel generators to power its cooling systems and key safety equipment. The International Atomic Energy Agency has voiced great concern about the Russian-controlled Zaporizhia plant, which has suffered damage from repeated shelling. Neighboring Moldova also experienced massive blackouts on Wednesday, but was not directly hit. Well, away from that, 12 people, including 3 women, have been flogged in front of thousands of onlookers at a football stadium in Afghanistan. The group were guilty of moral crimes, including adultery, robbery, and gay sex, a Taliban official reported. This is thought to be the second time in a month the Islamist group has carried out public lashings. The move could signal a return to the hardline practices seen in the previous Taliban rule in the 1990s. Omar Mansour Mujahid, a Taliban spokesman for Logar region in eastern Afghanistan, where the lashings happened, said that all 3 women were freed after they were punished. Some of the men were jailed, he said, but it is not clear how many. The men and women received between 21 and 39 lashes each. The maximum number person can receive is 39, another Taliban official said. 19 people were also punished last week in a similar flogging in Takhar province in northern Afghanistan, according to reports.
Now elsewhere, Rwandan female referee makes history at World Cup. Rwandan referee Salima Mukansanga made history on Tuesday after becoming the first African female referee to officiate in a men's World Cup match. The 34-year-old was the 4th official in the match between reigning world champions France and Australia, and South Africa's Victor Gomez was the center referee and was assisted by countryman Zekele Siwela and Lesotho's Sowuru Faswane. Earlier this year, Mukansanga became the first woman to take charge of a match at the Men's African Cup of Nations, which was first played in 1958. While last year she officiated at the Olympics Games in Tokyo. And in climate news, the US and China have resumed formal climate talks for the first time since they were put on ice earlier this year when the relationship became strained over Taiwan. US President Joe Biden and China's President Xi Jinping agreed to address climate change in their recent exchange in Bali, while top Chinese climate negotiator Xi Zhenhua and John Kelly, the U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, did the same at COP27 in Egypt. Discussions between China and the U.S. were very candid, friendly, active and positive, and very constructive, according to Mr. Xi, that is from the Chinese state broadcaster. The U.S. Secretary of State will also visit China next year to continue this conversation. But at a time when the urgency around climate crisis is only increasing, people around the world are calling for less talk and more action.
Well, the lady referee seems to be making milestones. I've been hearing about her from last year, and clearly she continues to break world records. So I hope more and more still come her way. But also, what you need to do right now is understand or give yourself pointers on how you can make your health much better, how you can make sure that as the festivities are coming closer, your health is in check to accommodate whatever it is that your body could be taking in. And right now, I know that Robert will be giving you some of these tips on how to achieve that 100%.
And definitely with such weather, so much diseases come along, most of those that affect the respiratory system. But one of the things I have here, these are the drinks from Hallelujah Reflexology. Now, these are immune boosters. They will enable your body fight off a number of diseases. It's just 1,500 each of these bottles. 1,500, any retail shop, any supermarket, these drinks are there. So make it a daily routine. At least every day you take any of these products, and I guarantee you, you'll be more productive, very healthy, but also you'll make a number of savings. Christmas around the corner. So some monies, we should resist giving out monies for treatment. So just boost your immune system and you're good to go.
Well, there you go. But also, Felix, Mollen and Robert, today is Celebrate a Unique Talent Day. And I don't know, do you think you have a unique talent? Maybe just to start off with you, Felix. Maybe, yes, I know you have a unique talent, probably one you've shared with us before, or no, never. Or never, it's a two-way thing, but we could help you celebrate it today.
I have quite lots of them.
Okay.
How many do you want me to name for you?
I don't know, as much as you can.
Well, I've done lots of oratory work, and I think that's one of my strengths.
Okay.
I've used it professionally and definitely also for other lots. It has earned me a lot of money. But secondly, I'm a sports and athletic fanatic.
Yes, you
so
are.
I don't know if it's but I do a lot of soccer, and I've done it at all levels.
Okay.
Trust me.
Okay.
Fairly professional, almost, but
yeah. Didn't, you know?
I don't know if loving is a talent, but if it is, I'm so loving.
We shall get back to you.
Yeah. Okay. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a talent to know how to love? I mean,
what, you doubt it? You doubt my
besides,
talent?
we can't even.
Yeah, thank you, Amara, you
No, he already does. He already does love me. So I think
go away,
you didn't have to shout. You
No.
didn't have to shout like that. I mean, there is a lot of types of love. Anyway, now for me.
I love you, Mollen.
Oh, thank you so much. I
you.
love you too.
Thank
You
you so
see
much.
that kind of sentiment?
Yes.
I think.
We thrive on love
I
in
think-
this world.
Now, Philomena, the only confusing thing about this talent thing is if you're not professional at it, it somehow doesn't count as a talent.
I like that.
I would want to push it as things I like to do. Personally, I like to do swimming. I've not made it a profession, but I am good at it.
Yes.
And that is one thing I really, really love about myself. I would also consider myself a loving person. People who are close to me. Yeah.
Robert, what's your talent?
Robert, don't talk about love. Talk about any other thing.
I think I have this unique thing that when people are around me, they're always happy. I don't know how it happens. I make people happy. I make people smile. I make people very happy. And I notice that even when I'm anywhere, tell you, sometimes my brother Felix says, Robert, you will kill me one day. But of late, I think he's getting used to that. But also, so I also have a very unique, I'm a very, well, in the spiritual realm, I'm a very good worshipper, by the way.
Oh.
And I've noticed if maybe there's a prayer meeting and I'm invited and I start any worship song, there's a way I connect people to a certain word, and sometimes
worship
healing
song means
Yes.
singing.
Yes.
Robert, are you talented in singing?
worship is
You
not
said singing.
worship. Yes, it's part of singing, but now this has people like us have a certain bit of anointing. That Felix, I can just worship, you are praying, and you get healed of any disease. So I noticed that
don't
people
want
share
the
with
healing,
me that
Robert.
when I begin worshiping, things happen, and I think that is one of the areas. that I think
If
I
flying
have.
was a talent, I told you that as well.
Well,
At least we know the talent behind
Go
all
and
that.
celebrate
Probably
your
lying in
That's a
there.
hidden
out
talent,
there.
Philo.
Felix, I want to invite you to my
Don't
place
invite me.
when you're having our
for our
meeting
beautiful
prayers.
viewers, you
And-
got to celebrate
and
your
I can assure
talent.
you,
These gentlemen here, they'll be okay. They'll be okay. But today, celebrate your unique talent. I'll be sharing mine much later on. But for now, we are going for a break. When we get back, we'll be having discussions on Good Morning Uganda Newsreel. We'll be back shortly.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Morning Uganda.
November 2022. Good morning, Uganda. Welcome to this very beautiful show that kickstarts your morning. It's a Thursday, Throwback Thursday as well, and of course time to catch up on what's happening around as well. Yesterday we did have our parliament that sat, and there was a lot that happened in their discussions, but one thing that really caught my attention, they did launch the 16 days of activism. Now in all this, of course, there's going to be quite a lot of campaigns and creating awareness amongst the factors that really have a lot to do with domestic violence. Statistics were put out, districts that still have the highest number of partners or people who are victims of domestic violence were out there, and the speaker had quite some requests that she had to make these days quite relevant, saying that why wouldn't the launch be happening in some of these districts where the statistics of domestic violence are high, and I totally agree with her on that. But also, again, very many other things happening. We have health workers also again risking it to strike, especially because they have not gotten their risk allowances. Now these health workers are the ones that have been grappling so hard when it comes to the Ebola outbreak, trying to make sure that they contain it. Well, where do you think this is going to take us? I am very, very excited to hear what my colleagues over here have to say about that. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and this morning, of course, I do have Robert, Mollen, and Felix, but also just to hear from Mollen. Good morning, how are you doing?
Well, I'm all right. Good morning to you. It's a beautiful morning indeed, like you put it. I feel like, you know, usually when you're in Uganda, there are a lot of things that also make sense and make you be happy about being a Ugandan. At the same time, there are those ones you look at and you're like, am I in the same country with everyone else? So yes, you look at the doctors striking, laying down their tools. I mean, they have been at the forefront of the Ebola fight, and you know, it's only fair that, you know, government comes in to also help them look out for themselves, to make sure that they are able to be safe, at the same time save lives of Ugandans. But also on a positive note, Honorable Minister General Thacheng did come out to say that Uganda is winning the fight against Ebola. The cases are going down. They have a lot handled, especially when it comes to, you know, stopping or reducing contact of the, you know, Ebola virus. So that is some kind of good news, and we could look forward to that. However, we also still ask ministry to intervene and make sure that these doctors are back to work, because that will also go a long way into ensuring that we maintain the status that
was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly, or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone, the most affordable smartphone in Uganda. You get to enjoy free 1 GB for 1 whole year. My Airtel 4G smartphone, your best value for money. Visit the nearest Airtel outlet today and get one at only 250,000 Uganda shillings. Airtel, the smartphone network.
UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Welcome to this very special segment, the Good Morning Uganda newsreel this morning. It is the 24th of November 2022, second last month of the year. My name is Philomena Mastiko. And I want to hope you're having a wonderful time. If you're getting ready for work, if you're ready on your way to work, well, I hope you can get there safe and sound. But lucky for you, you can always catch up with us and our conversations. We're streaming live on YouTube, so we are with you anywhere, everywhere, in your car, in your office, you know, in the supermarkets, in the shops, everywhere. We are with you this morning. And also, you can be part of our conversations by getting onto our social media pages, Twitter, hashtag UBCGMU, and let us know what you think about the discussions we are here to have. Go on and also use our WhatsApp platform to get your message across. But this morning, our conversation is going to be rotating around gender-based violence. Now, yesterday during the plenary sitting, Parliament, of course, launched the 16 days of activism. They said they were going to launch them, and this was supposed to be happening today. Now, the Speaker of Parliament did say that the ideal thing to do is to actually have these days launched in some of the districts where the statistics are quite high when it comes to gender-based violence. And she did call for a spirited action and also inclusion of men in equal fight for the gender-based violence. But also one thing that really caught my eye, and probably most of our Ugandan, you know, counterparts, were the statistics that came out, and they were showing that when it comes to Bukedi region, Bukedi and Acholi region have still held their positions as the first or the top countries, rather districts, that do have gender-based violence quite in an upsurge. And they did show that about 48%, actually they say at least 48% of the population over there is clearly of intimate partners in Bukedi region have been subjected to gender-based violence. I will repeat that. 48% of intimate partners in Bukedi region have been subjected to gender-based violence, and followed by 47% in the Acholi region, and 33% in Elgon, and then 8% in South Buganda. Now, this is according to 2021 statistics from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics. We'll repeat that again. Bukedi comes in number 1, and then followed by the Acholi region. Then we have Elgon region, and then South Buganda. Now, these statistics are not the kind of statistics we'll be playing around with. How what? In Chigezi area. Well, this is a 2021 report, but I'm pretty sure when it's updated, we'll be seeing new regions. Even if we go behind a bit, yes, probably. We actually, we'll be seeing more updates coming in, or even following up on the history. But looking at all these things, you know, honestly, in the year 2022, you would think, okay, that we're doing quite well on that front. You would want to think that, but the reality though is a bit different. And Robert, I mean, this is where I would really love to hear from you. What's frustrating our efforts, seeing as there are regions that are maintaining their positions, okay, clearly showing that this has been going on and on and on and on, and they're still able to maintain that. What's frustrating our efforts?
Well, thank you, Philo. The truth is there are a number of factors. There isn't a single factor that we can say is frustrating our efforts. First, information. There are many communities, most of the areas you've talked, where civility is there, but maybe it has taken some time. Why you see South Buganda not so common is because when you look at the dwellers in these communities, many of them are empowered, knowledge, these NGOs and all that. All these things start from here. Same as civilization began in Uganda.
Yes.
So, some of these factors, because these are remote areas, where they have certain cultural beliefs, that they are still clinging on, or not beliefs, but they have become their way of doing things. Now when you go to Acholi, you go to Bukedia, you'll find that these are people who still believe, in many of them, that a woman is a property. You get it?
Yes.
It's a property. I bought my wife. I took the many cows, I took the many goats. I bought my wife. That is a property. That they have not reached that point of understanding that no, this is a partner. She's your helper. She's there to help, you know?
Yes.
To advise you to, not a property. And when we go to culture, you know, there are certain practices that are over time, because they have been happening in these communities, they turn almost the way of doing things. This child, not educated, has not had exposure, grew up in a family where the father beats the mother. And it is common. Dad goes and drinks, comes back, beats the mother. The neighbor does it, the other neighbor, the neighbor of the neighbor of the neighbor does the same thing.
Yes.
So it is a way of doing things. Contrary to when you come down in Kampala, where if Felix was battering or beating the wife, we would even isolate him because of levels of civility, knowledge, awareness. So their elements of culture and exposure still remain a problem. Two, you find that even poverty. You see, if there is any time domestic violence increased in Uganda, was during the time of COVID-19. If you remember very well, the statistics were very alarming, where we thought that these lover birds are now going to be back home, you know, they have more time with each other,
get to know each other,
get to know each other, observe each other,
make the
enjoy each
stronger.
other.
Observe the experience.
Now, this is where the problem came. Men were home with no money. Some working class women were now also home with no money. And remember, of late, there are some marriages that happen not because of love. Someone says, this one will look after me properly. Says, whatever, Saja innocent. And now COVID, this shop at Chiseka was closed. This web was closed. So poverty came in. And some people could not handle the situation. While the wife would come, now which kind of man are you fair to provide? Felix's home, I saw them eating chicken amidst this for you, telling us even beans you can't get them. So poverty is one of the issues that have made domestic violence continue. Also alcoholism. This beer, and most of those who don't even take beer. Some of them, they take alcohol, they don't know even the alcoholic volume. A man takes something as this half of this bottle, but my friend has 5 crates of beer in it. So booze creates an element because you're not in your right sense of judgment. Even where Mastiko would annoy you and you're like, maybe share some iota of truth. I think, well, coming back later doing this. When you've taken, my brother will testify to that. You may end up you're in high mood and it is just a slap nearby.
Sense of judgment is not
Sense
exactly,
of judgment is corrupted. And you see, for some of these homes, if you look at statistics, if they deeper went to analyze, you're going to find that most of these homes, the family heads are alcoholics.
Well,
most of these homes,
still speaking, yes. Now, according to the survey again, it revealed that 47% women face economic violence, with while sexual violence by non-partners, and since age 15 stood at about 55%, with 14% perpetrated by close relatives. So, again, I really now understand why, Felix, you do have trust issues, because I mean, if it comes even to the relatives who are fully involved in this, or they have a percentage in which they're involved, it brings very many questions. Well, but I want us to focus more on this economic violence, Felix. Maybe you could even give us a definition of what that is and how exactly how it was enabled, or who enables it, because it's still going on right now, seeing as it is even making it to the statistics.
Well, of course, it does manifest in various ways, Philo and Robert. Well, you see, violence at itself, in its every manifestation, would become a type. One would tell you there's violence that manifests in terms of silence.
Yes.
That can amount to, and that's one of the worst.
Or Sidika.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the one. But there's also, you talk about sexual violence.
Yes.
You've heard about things like marital rape. I don't know, have you heard of that?
Yes, I have. I've heard of it.
And
It's actually a
we,
very
are,
common
we have
case.
struggled with finding definition and making fellow men understand that it's actually possible by the fact that you target the word marital. But I've been privileged, unfortunately, to be part of some handling of some cases, for example, in that line. And men will ask you, as I come to what you asked Phil about economic, and a man will ask you that what is marital rape? But for some of you who have wives or better halves or colleagues or friends or bedmates or roommates, whatever status you're suffering with, you notice that when a woman gives birth, sometimes it may take her about a month. They normally give about 6 weeks to about 12 weeks for them to, if they do a normal birth delivery, for their whatever down there to get together and all. Now, in that process, they may not be fit to have intercourse.
Yes.
But you know, in this country, we have men, and there are very many. Trust me, you go to all these NGOs, you go to Urinate Uganda, the Women Rights Network, whatever, the feeders, these cases are there. Sometimes that is what manifests, because a woman will tell you, in as much as you have a right over this through marriage, you don't possess people's bodies. I have had cases where men force themselves for intercourse with such women, 3 days out of maternity.
Jesus.
No, and I'm telling you, these are, I can testify because I've been part of cases.
Danger.
And I will surprise you, these things happen in Kampala.
Oh, God.
Where you expect
Muchibuga Chavayivu,
yes.
as one of my most celebrated musicians, Paul Kape said, Muchibuga Chavayivu, in quotes. So all these are things that may not become unaccounted for, because and there's a lady, case was here in Naguru, the lady got rotten and what, and we had to intervene as lawyers, go to court, and the whole committee didn't seem to understand that there was something wrong with this, because the only qualification of the man was onomuchi mukazi wange.
But then that is not love.
Now, you see, and that's where I want to come to after answering Philo's question about economic violence. You see, many, and some of you viewers, and my colleagues on set, and people elsewhere, you go slow and talk to your mother. How many times the father took his money without authority, but only because she's a woman. You know these women, our beautiful champions, the women who sweep the roads, who are in markets, those darlings, these women. Oh, we sent a maro bukola like this, pop. You know what the Chiravos do? These Chiravos, they come because under the tag of being
the head of the family,
they take that money. And surprisingly, they take this money not to develop the family, but for two major things.
Alcohol.
And the alcohol to first spread on the other women, and then later on for enjoyment. For those who don't take alcohol, would go. There's now another alcohol called betting.
Oh yes.
You know, people could go into these games. There's pool. There's no people play. There's Ludo. Almost every center place has some of these games that now take men or youth's attention. So yeah, people who don't drink, sometimes people who don't drink, those are their alcohol. Now that manifests into economic violence, that women are not economically gaining as much as they are investing in terms of economic transactions. That's one of the...
She cultivates the land.
She does all those things. They probably have 5,000.
Maize is ready. The coffee is ready. She puts it there waiting for a client. The man comes, steals the entire bag, and she has nothing to say. It's my land.
So these are some of but also, there's something that you did talk about, both of you, Philo and Robert. For us to deal with, one of the ways we must deal with domestic violence, gender-based violence, we must redefine the purpose of unions. Why do I get a Philomena? Like chichi echitugata, for lack of a better way to put it in English, what is our union anchored on? And let me tell you, sadly, for purposes of trading our tradition and customs, we may go the Western way of having contractual relationships. Because our way has failed. Our way has marginalized particular sex or particular gender. We're not going to lose people. We don't, unfortunately, we didn't probably come with the statistics of how many people die because of gender-based, but it's also a number.
Yes. Which is always growing, by the way. It's not
That's
even
it.
constant.
Oh.
So that's why I'm saying, because our own customs have not done us the justice up till today. They're only promoting, religion is promoting gender-based violence. If a custom is telling you a woman is sugar, is an equivalent of squad, most recent, we are selling our children. You understand? We are selling, we are actually doing transactions. And now it is official. It is an open in terms of dowry. But it is open transaction. Philomena, Fuluma, jango buze kubantu mchidala. And you simply, the people who are there are witnesses to a contractual relationship. Someone is purchasing you. You understand?
Yes.
It is so, and we have certified it. It is normal. And that's why most of the domestic or the gender-based violence we see in families is based on that. Because our traditions, our customs have given us a particular sex a bigger appreciation of ownership. You get it? There's a species or there's a gender that is more seen to be owning the other. Kirabo is the husband. You hear even some tribes say, what relationship is that? Then they, that is tradition. And not that, I think we have also abused tradition most recently.
Yes.
Previously it wasn't that about probably, the intention was different, that's the truth.
And the way it was done even was different.
Absolutely.
But today, it is entirely a transaction, like you've said.
That's what I'm saying. Katifilo, you get out of the house 3 times, juices are going to and the people they are simply saying, it's like a trade. And that's why I've seen even in particular the Uganda kingdom has come out to condemn most of these acts. That because of how we have tried to modernize cultural events, which previously, and that is simply for recognition.
And actually it was not, it was a separate thing.
Yes. Secret actually, it was secret.
It shouldn't have.
But now, last time I was telling you, you hold a function, and these things are pressures normally from women, with due respect. Nagamanze wafe, ndetere motoka, batete yo tanka, solar system, fridge, entebe ya data, simanyi ujala, all these kind of things.
So
now the man is saying, hey, now the day he comes back and you have not cooked food, obongo bonna buli ku pipa erije ya watata. And sometimes they even tell you, TV and the slaps. So because of
you've not cooked food, is still servicing loans that
you get the point
to pay you off.
So we must, you see, these are things people don't want to discuss. They'll hide under men. No, we must revise the because most of these manifest between intimate relations, or would be. We need to revise our traditions. I've told you, we may opt to go for these contractual relationships because ours are all failing us. You say, Philomena, we're going to be together. The first contract is 3 years. And let's go to civil court. For marriage, 3 years. If things work out, we make an extension. Maybe. But also it has its dangers because we are going to dilute our traditions, but our traditions are not coming out to also help the situation.
Okay. Now, according to the Minister of Gender, that is Betty Emongi, she actually says that since Uganda engaged into the 16 Days of Activism campaign, there's been quite an increase in public awareness against gender-based violence as a human right, increased awareness about public health, and also the social issue of family, community at both national and societal levels. Yes, this would definitely make us happy, but again, can we say that we've really done enough when it comes to that?
Well, we've not done enough. And for me, Honorable Minister, I have a problem with some of these people. You see, in my career as a reporter, I attended most of these, because it's not new, these 16 days of activism against domestic violence has been around.
It has been around.
It has been around for some time. But I think also that people sending this message against domestic violence, they must rethink, are they pushing for equity or equality? Because I've had a number who, when they're talking about domestic violence, they front so much, let's empower the women so that they can be equal to men. Now, this male species we are having here has a problem.
Which one? Why are you pointing at?
Has a problem that it never accepts for its position. And remember, the ego. And remember, given our cultures and our religions as well, there is so much that Philo can have a young brother. If Philo is from Uganda, unfortunately, she's not, unfortunately. At your age, when Felix comes to visit, you need your brother.
Because that's what culture.
Your brother of 5 years, when it was now, this poor boy grew up knowing he's superior. You get it?
Yes.
All his life. I remember one of the things that used to annoy me so very much. I had 2 cousin sisters that I grew up with at home. And I was the boy. But even if I fell down, and I hurt myself, when these ones would have issues, oh, sorry. Even in the Bible, Jesus, there's a scripture that says, and Jesus wept, our Lord and Savior, full of anointing. He reached and he wept. So you see, the male flock grows up knowing there is some level where he is. Now, these people advocating, preaching the gospel of fighting domestic violence, I think the mistake some of them are doing is they think that when you promote equality, not equity, we'll be able to fight domestic violence.
Okay.
And that is where I think the problem is. Yes, we must change how do we package information that is aimed at that. Then second, why I'm saying they have not done enough, involvement of men. I'm sorry, I'm going to go a bit personal, but these are realities of life. I've looked at many, and sometimes they lack role models.
The what?
People that are front, this campaign, if you look at the 16 Days of Activism, there are so many non-government organizations that are pushing.
There are women all over, in short.
I wanted to come to that.
Don't massage it. You see,
it looks more of a thing of women, a thing of women. Most of them failed.
Let me understand this. Women being part of the activism, or women being the victims?
Leave alone being the victims. Part of the activism.
It seems more like a women issue fronting it.
And even the women they have that come, I'm sorry to say this, but even the women that they have that come to speak about these, many of them are victims. You look at a substantial woman who is going to say, no, a marriage should be like that.
Anyway, I can't allude to that,
so,
but I want to
let me complete what I'm saying. So, the battle is okay, but we need to address a few things. How are we packaging what we are bring out to the world? I think it should be more of responsibility, working harmony and love, than saying, when you see now there is police, now there is this, don't allow this. No. Second, we should have men actually at the forefront, because they're the key people, they're the key suspects here. But we've isolated the men. They meet girls, you go to schools all the time, girls, single schools, girls. But this young man who right from childhood should be your target, the husbands who should be your target. It's better when a Felix talks to a Kirabo and says, Kirabo, teba kuba mukazi, than when a Philo comes and says, Kirabo, ebyokuba omukazi byavaawo. How would you look at this other nakonka batule?
Well, the Speaker of Parliament was also talking about the same issue, saying that in as much as we are putting up a spirited fight for this gender-based violence problem, we also don't have to isolate the men. And it's quite understandable. But also, I have an issue. When it comes to the activism beat, where are the men?
You know,
I feel like the men have left this responsibility entirely to the women.
I don't think it's about living. Trust me. For example, when you watch...
okay, fine. Being a victim, I totally understand there are men out there, by the way, who are suffering in silence. And again, it's...
But do you know why they're suffering in silence?
We need to understand. We need to appreciate that. My issue, though, is that when it comes to the activism, much as there are women who are speaking for other women, okay, who are not going through that, but they know it's there. Where are the men in all this?
Sometimes women also love seeing me. They have a lot of seeing me.
No,
it's not that.
Want to be all
like over.
There is still a gap that needs to be filled by the men when it comes to the activism. Because
no.
Yes.
I think it gets back to what Bob was saying, that for the campaign holders, they have chosen not to include, and I think it's by choice, because
it's intentional.
what is portrayed is that men are the perpetrators, like these are the guys we are fighting
let's fight for ourselves.
You get it? And when you are at this particular of gender-based violence, all parties must be addressed, the offender and the offended, or the victim for that matter. Because if you address the victim, the only thing you're going to tell the victim, sorry, but if you address the offender, by the way, some men do these things without the right knowledge. That's the truth, because of the curtailment or the blanket ideas of tradition and religion.
Yes, there are very many reasons really that lead them
but when they get to the light of knowledge, many of them will change. That's the truth. So when you want to address the problem of gender-based violence, and that's I allude to what the speaker was saying, let's deal with the offender and the victim in terms of rehabilitation. I believe and trust that there's major stakeholders in this war against gender-based violence. The first stakeholder is our cultural leaders. Most of African cultures perpetrate women as being as good as useless. No wonder you find things like polygamy rampant. You find some names of even some particular people that, like for example, Buffy. And with due respect, that portrays how a particular species can be taken up.
A woman cannot bear hair.
All those things.
Girl child,
exactly.
You know.
Now, do you know that even today, not to have a boy as a family is an issue?
Yes.
You know, a man will struggle. In fact, when they are talking, he will feel small.
There's no one to continue with your legacy.
How best can we overcome the rising gender-based violence practice? What would be the ideal thing to do? How best can we overcome the rising gender-based violence practice, especially here in Uganda, after looking at statistics where the Bukedea region, Choli region, the Elgon region, and the southern part of Uganda making quite the top lists? How do we do this? How do we fight this? Continue sending us your feedback on 0709602592. We'll be getting through it shortly, and also get onto our Twitter #UBCGMU. I'll be getting in that feedback as well and sharing it with the rest of you, our Good Morning Uganda family. For now, we're going into the papers to see the big stories. We'll be back after this break.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone, the most affordable smartphone in Uganda. You get to enjoy free 1 GB for 1 whole year. My Airtel 4G smartphone, your best value for money. Visit the nearest Airtel outlet today and get one at only 250,000 Uganda shillings. Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Ministry of Health informs the public that there are confirmed cases of Ebola in Uganda. We, however, urge the public not to panic as the situation is being managed. The Ministry of Health further reminds the public to be on the lookout for any persons who may show signs and symptoms of Ebola. These include high body temperature, abdominal pains, diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding from the body openings such as the nose, eyes, and mouth. Please inform the nearest health worker immediately if you see anyone with these signs and symptoms. To prevent Ebola from spreading further, please take the following preventive measures: regular washing of hands with water and soap, avoid handshaking and hugging, avoiding any contact with any suspected Ebola patients. Any person who dies suddenly should not be buried but reported to the nearest health worker or LC1 immediately. For further information, please call the Ministry of Health toll-free number on 0800 100 066 or send a 00. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and World Health Organization.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Press review this morning, Daily Monitor, big story, new audit unearths COVID-19 cash abuse, and of course looking at fresh queries. This morning, irregularities found by the Office of the Government Ombudsman include several contracts given to firms owned by the same people, expenditure on services that were not used, and even spending taxpayers' money beyond allocated ceilings. NSSF board to meet today over Byarugaba contract. Now, you could call it decision day. Discussions about rehiring of the incumbent chief executive gained traction after the Deputy Solicitor General guided that his current contract, ending next Thursday, could not be terminated on the basis of cloaking the retirement age. Now, why police are vulnerable to attacks, of course, following the events that have been happening in the last couple of weeks. You could catch that full story in the Daily Monitor. Now, in more news, Obote's Minister Kuya dies in Kenya, and UN tells M23 rebels to withdraw and disarm. And also, court petitioned over Deleo Basaja trial. And in the World Cup, MAC female student demands TVs. Well, that's in the Daily Monitor. And also in some more tragic news, 5 family members die in house fire. And onto the second page of the Daily Monitor. Today in history, Bible Society established. The year was 1965, and terrorists attacked mosque in Egypt. The year was 2017.
And crossing over onto the New Vision, government issues sanctions over student registration. That is a detailed story on page 8, but also a big headline right there. Auditor General exposes rot in COVID-19 deals. Anomalies in vaccine procurement are revealed. That is on page 7. Also, DRC, Rwanda in fresh. That is with M23 talks. That is a story on page 3. Kirabo court rejects suspect's confession. A story on page 32 of the New Vision. They also give you a picture right there. President Museveni to the chair Vietnam Investment Summit. That was during that event yesterday. Now also, they give you government plans to review ban on Kavera. That's a story on page 8. And of course, with the FIFA World Cup, Ronaldo steps forward to be counted. Details are on page 44. Crossing over onto the second page, business mogul tips youth on job creation. Now, that is also a story to look out for. Also today in history, back in 2009, 100 ghost centers uncovered. And back in 1988, Mandela not returned to jail.
And in the Daily Monitor sports section, Japan delivers another World Cup shocker. And still, Cristiano Ronaldo will have to leave all the drama around him out of the game today. Still in more FIFA World Cup news. And Samba dance at Qatar stage. The big boys, Brazil's Samba boys, will today kick off another quest for a 6th title with the fierce team. They are among the tournament favorites. And I will tell you, Mollen, that I am so excited. This could be one of the few matches I may actually sit through and watch entirely till the end. Well, that and many more sports stories in the Daily Monitor. So get yourself a copy and catch up on that and many, many more.
Well, the New Vision Sport also brings you much more of the World Cup. Your World Cup paper, they give you Cristiano Ronaldo's moments as he steps forward against Ghana after rival Messi fails a fast test. Well, all eyes are on that. And what you need to know, fixtures right there for you. The day's biggest game, obviously, and Fred Kawesi also weighing in on what is happening with the World Cup. Now, much more of that, you can catch the stories. And also they give you a recap of yesterday, the Japanese leaving Germany down. That's interesting right there.
It was a very interesting game, though.
Yes, it was.
And Daily Nation, Kenya stares at athletics ban. The government last night declared zero tolerance to doping, with top sports officials racing against time to wriggle the country out of a looming ban against its athletes in international competitions over the rising cases of doping. Now, that story is on pages 2 and 3. You can catch that in detail. And Ministry recalls HIV drug from patients, and also looking at the economy. Broke Treasury starts short-term debt swap. And also in news coming in from the drought section, children quit school to search for food. And Ruto Raila showdown in battle for IEBC's soul. Well, there you go. Get yourself the Daily Nation, Daily Monitor, and the New Vision this morning to catch up on that. But also headed towards the traffic this morning, looking at areas around Boyogerere and Chireka, all the way to Nakawa and crossing over to town. I could say that it's quite a busy morning this time round, and the traffic is quite heavy on most of those roads. But also picking it from Boyogerere, you'll be expecting again some heavy traffic, especially from the roundabout where cars are joining in from several parts. We have cars coming in from Namave. We have cars also joining in from the upper part of the town, so you'll be expecting traffic around there. And cars again that are trying to take the shorter route through Chireka Road, that is behind Nambole, to join via Chireka Town Center. Again, there is traffic building up on that specific spot, so yes, you could also be very, very informed when it comes to the decision you want to take on which route to use this morning. Looking at Chireka is very busy. It's already a town center as it is, but we have cars coming in from Namgongo, cars joining in from Kamuli Road. So yes, you'll be seeing quite some heavy traffic on that very spot over here, the junction, and the traffic extends in all the way as you're headed towards Banda. Banda again is always quite a busy town. We do have cars that join in from Chambogo. We do have cars that join in, of course, from Chireka, so causing again some traffic over there. And again, it continues all the way as you're joining Nakawa around the junction, where we have cars again joining in from Ntinda, cars joining in from Chinawataka Road, trying to access Nakawa Town Center to join through all the way to Lugogo and headed towards town. The road is very busy. That could be the main road again. That is the Kampala Ginger Road I'm talking about this morning. So yes, make sure that you make planned movements. Getting down to Ginger Road, which is of course close to internal affairs, quite a busy spot, and cars coming in from Old Port Bay Road, cars joining in from Yusuf Lule Road, cars also trying to get into the main route coming in from Wampel Avenue, causing again a stampede of traffic over there. So yes, please be careful. Cars also joining in from Access Road from all these other parts of Makindye Division. You will be witnessing that. But also into the town center, the shortcuts you could use are quite ideal. Trying to use Nile Avenue. If you're joining in from Yusuf Lule Road, you could also use Huntington Road. You could also use Speak Road, which is quite favorable this morning. So yes, make sure that you find your way around town, but in a very careful manner. And again, be quite very careful on the road. Well, that's it from the traffic updates this morning. Well, when it comes to the weather, Mollen, it hasn't yet rained. At least I haven't witnessed drizzles or rains this morning, because yesterday was quite a wet day. I did see that, but I don't know if we could be, probably we could be lucky enough to have a dry or hot day, because I'm actually yearning for it. We need it. Yeah. Yes, I don't know what that looks like. Our weather looks like this this Thursday.
Well, I'll tell you what, it doesn't look like we're going to have mostly a sunny day like you would have loved, because we already actually did have some rains across parts of Kampala. Now in my area there were actually showers, a little bit of drizzles anyway before coming to work. So I do know that also a lot of areas around Lake Victoria did get a few of those rains. Now those haven't cleared yet. That system is still there, and we could still be looking at rains later in your day. So yes, we will also have a few areas that will continue with sunny conditions. Maybe that's good news if they still have the sun like Philomena here does. But you also look at areas within northern Uganda, the Karamoja region, that have been dealing with mostly sunny days. I don't think they would have wanted the sun to continue. They're actually yearning for a little bit of rain. So it's just, it's never clear what weather we want. Imagine being God, or imagine being a scientist at that, having to forecast this kind of weather.
We put that part. We put God in quite a hard position. I must say, I would never want to be in their place.
Yeah, it's really, it's disturbing, because you look at the fact that while other people are calling for, yes, we need some rains here, there are others that say, no, we're done with the rains, we would rather deal with the, sunny days. And I think that puts all of us in a situation where, you can't just predict that this is the particular area I would want to rain in. The rain will just come at a whole.
At this point, I would urge you to be ready for any kind of weather condition that comes before us, whether it rains, whether it shines. At the end of the day, it is what it is. I will leave it at that. Mollen to give us more updates from weather and climate. Have a wonderful Thursday. I am Philomena Mastiko. Good morning.
Well, I'll take it from there, and we're still continuing with what is happening in Indonesia. What we do know so far is that right from yesterday, where the death toll was about 232, they're now reporting more deaths, as the death toll has risen to about 270. And of course, more people are still, missing. And of course, they are reporting that that could also mean that they are already dead, because at least they have overturned a lot of places within the area that is across Indonesia on the island of Java. Now, what we do know is that people are still standing around the area, of course, with authorities not allowing them to get near, waiting to see news of their relatives that were trapped by this event. That was after an earthquake, and of course that triggered a landslide that did bury a lot of houses, killing many people. So far at 271 people that have been officially reported dead, and more than 31 missing, according to the relatives that have come up to authorities reporting this instance. Now, that is still a sad situation over there. And of course, right now, we're also having reports from geologists and meteorologists that are saying that there could be a likelihood of, more tremors coming in the area. It is still unstable, which is why they are also having slow rescue operations and also preventing people from being close to the area, as they still that kind of likelihood. And of course, they're also worried that, of course, as people are yearning to get into the area, They would also want to help with rescue, which doesn't help because they could also get themselves in a very, very, very bad situation. And that is one to actually look out for. Well, we're also talking about what is happening across the world when it comes to a climate crisis. We do know that we have seen at least an improvement with the two largest or biggest emitters in the world. We're talking about China and USA. Now, they did engage in talks, and we're reading the story today morning. But again, we're seeing more of the talks. We're not seeing anything, especially when it comes to action. Now, we have seen action from the US, but China has continuously distanced itself from most of these commitments that countries are making. That is where we're worried, and we're saying that we do need more action, because if they could make a transformation to go more into renewable energy, because we know they have the money to do that. Now, this is the kind of economy that has the money. Even if they wanted to have, over 100 solar plants, big solar plants across China, they would. We are wondering why they're not doing that. They have the capacity to go or even 100% electric cars. They have not moved to that extent. They have continued using coal. And I think that is why we're saying that, yes, if we do have these talks at least, coming up once again, we might be looking at much more of greener pastures coming up, especially now that we know that their counterparts in the US have started, especially commitments. We did see the Biden administration also coming up to say they are willing to make more commitments, especially when it comes to, transitioning mostly to electric cars. They already have those at least at 10%. That is one we are still looking out for. But also, you do look at the act that was passed recently, the law that was passed recently by President Joe Biden, that also is making a swift transformation into them making more investments in renewable energy. That is one we're still looking out for. But then again, we're calling for more action. Now, individually, there are also a lot of things that we could be doing to make sure that we also do our part when it comes to climate action. Now, among those, you look at our lifestyle. How we live also matters. How we also handle daily lifestyle can go a long way into, choosing to save our planet. Now, first of all, do you really have to always be driving your car to work? And I think this is a big question that has also been posed, even as we're talking about the climate talks in Egypt. Now, there is a proposal from scientists and, of course, climate scientists saying that people should be getting back to the bicycle rides, especially if the distance is not much. You would want to cut down on those emissions that are, being done by your car. That is that if for shorter distances, you could actually take a bicycle ride. That is one thing that is being looked at in terms of lifestyle change. But also, if you're going to purchase a car right now, you would rather go for an electric car than getting a diesel or petrol car. That is also one suggestion that people are saying, scientists are saying, if we could make those swift changes, we would also be contributing or putting our part into making sure that we actually are contributing a lot when it comes to climate action. Away from that, we also want to take a look at what is happening across the country in terms of weather, and the forecast for this morning is coming in from Uganda National Meteorological Authority. We'll be taking a look at what is happening in terms of our temperatures. Now, yesterday we also did start off with quite a chilly day across most areas, but then again in the afternoon, most areas were still dealing with rains, meaning that temperatures still remained quite low. We're also looking at a pickup in wet weather activities when it comes to some areas within eastern Uganda. That is where we've been having mostly dry weather, but we did see some rains coming up for most of those areas, and of course that was also coming in through for most parts of the country. Now we start off with the western part of Lake Victoria Basin. That is where we have Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe and Rakai. We're forecasting isolated rains. Those will be starting off with quite a chilly 25 degrees centigrade. You look at southwestern Uganda, that is where we have Mbara, Ibanda, Bushenyi, Rubirizi. We're looking at those isolated rains again, also likely to start off with that a chilly 25 degrees. Across Mount Elgon Highlands, that is where we have Mbale, Bududa, Buko and Sirionko. We're forecasting rains. Those will be across several places within that region. Also starting off with quite a cold morning at 23 degrees centigrade. We also do expect those rains to cross over into the afternoon. Now we look at the eastern side of Lake Victoria. That is where we have Tororo, Busia, Iganga and Jinja. We are forecasting rains across several places within that area. We'll also be looking at quite pleasant 26 degrees. Now for eastern Uganda, we're again going to be seeing those rains coming through for a few areas within that region. We're talking about areas of Soroti, Katakwi, Amuri and Kumi. Also starting off with quite a pleasant morning that is at 26 degrees centigrade. We're also looking at the eastern side of Lake Victoria, parts of Central where we have Ruero, Woblen, Zibururi and Nakaseke. We are forecasting rainy conditions that will be across several places. We already have clouds developing in the area, and that will also be starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees. Central northern Uganda, Gulu, Kitgum, Padel and Ajumani, we're forecasting sunny intervals. Those will be starting off at a warm 27 degrees. Well, the central part of Lake Victoria, where we have Kampala, Entebbe, Mukono and Wakiso, we're forecasting isolated rains, and we're also starting off at quite a chilly 25 degrees centigrade. Now we do expect that system as well to reappear in the afternoon, where we could be dealing with more rains, especially for the southern sector. Now still the message is make sure that you're able to make a little bit of shifts in your lifestyle so that you also help tackle the issue of climate change. And of course, most of what I was talking about also is being, acknowledged by ACT now, which is working with the World Meteorological Organization, talking about a few things that we can do in our daily lives to make sure that we save the planet. Now, if you're not using that light in your home, make sure you can switch it off. That way you're conserving power and you're able to also help preserve the environment by also reducing on the emissions. Now, taking a bicycle ride, that is one thing that is also being advised by the scientists, saying yes, that could help and go a long way into cutting down our emissions. Now using wind energy, of course, that is one that is also being shown by that image on turbines, but also having an electric car. That is one thing that we're emphasizing on, also from the message that was coming in from Egypt. Now you need to also start looking at the way you eat. I mean, saving food, cooking once, saving food for the next hour in the day, where you can still eat that same food without having to cook again. That means you're saving on power, you're saving on the gas you're using. That way you're also saving the planet. Well, those are some of the swift changes that you could go for, and make sure that you're also making your part and contribution towards climate action. Of course, much more of that comes with asking for help. We're saying governments should intervene, developed countries should intervene, but we can also do our part. Now, if you're going shopping, how about you also buy a tree and plant it somewhere around your home, and also maybe in your compound. We do know that trees have been our best ally in containing those emissions, so that is one thing to do. Instead of you going in a supermarket and buying a lot of food, junk food, or these that are processed via processes that are emitting emissions, buy a tree instead. Have it in your compound. That way you're able to save the planet. Well, that is it in terms of weather and nature for this morning. Of course, we'll be having Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up after this. Later on, we'll also be giving you some highlights about sports, and you can look forward to Good Morning Uganda Extra that comes right after that. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a good day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Yeah.
Sending money the old way.
Eh? Wrong number.
Sending money with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to access and confirm contact details in real time before you send money. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
Welcome to English in a Minute. American English has many expressions that come from card games. Is this another one?
It's going to rain all weekend. How am I going to have my lawn care party now?
Yeah, that's not the kind of activity you can bring indoors. Maybe a party is not in the cards, Anna.
Jonathan, so many people wanted to work outside for me in the hot, hot sun.
If something is not in the cards, it is not likely to happen. People also say in the cards to mean something is likely to happen. This phrase actually comes from fortune tellers. They use special cards to supposedly predict a person's future. And that's English in a minute.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here, in the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking, to the taste of food that takes you on a journey, in the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth, in the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
Yeah.
Sending money the old way.
Eh? Wrong number.
Sending money with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to access and confirm contact details in real time before you send money. Unlock that power with the My Airtel app. Visit the App Store or Google Play now.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
It's exactly 1 minute past 8. Thank you so much for being with us on UBC TV. Now, in case you've just joined, this is our morning show, Good Morning Uganda. And right now, it is time for our segment that is Good Morning Uganda Agenda. Here, we usually have a guest in studios. You're able to give us feedback by simply going on our various social media platforms and using that number. We have a WhatsApp number, which is on your screen, the 0709 60 25 92. You can send an SMS message the traditional way, even without a smartphone, or you can send us WhatsApp message, and I guarantee you I'll be reading them out. Now, this morning I have an issue that is so much on the media, but also affects a big number of Ugandans, most of that wake up daily to come and make a living in markets within Kampala, and also those that rely on products or produce from these markets, and that is KCCA having repossessed, that is, markets in Kampala. Now, this follows a presidential directive that was very clear that the 16 markets that are public markets, previously owned by either associations or owned or maybe tendered out, return to KCCA, and KCC staff man these markets. Now, joining me on set is the person in charge of commercial services, that is KCCA, Bukenya Henry. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Kirabo. Good morning, viewers. Greetings from the Executive Director, Kampala Capital City Authority, and the KCCA fraternity.
Well, Kenya, just help our viewer understand, when we talk about KCCA repossessing these public markets, we hear they're about 16 in number. What was the status quo before the presidential directive?
Thank you, Kirabo. And to our viewers, you will remember in 2008, the president issued a directive for associations, actually for vendors to form associations through which they could be able to manage their own affairs, market affairs. This was out of the outcry that was there before, where KCC then used to tender out these markets. You remember during that time when markets were being tendered out to various personalities in the city, and somehow things were not moving on well. Vendors kept on crying about being exploited. So His Excellency took a decision then, and his entire cabinet, that maybe we should try and give the mandate of managing and administering these markets to vendors themselves. So that's what happened. Now, along the way, some of the association leaders started hijacking market land, exploiting their fellow vendors. So this is somehow deviated from the goodwill the president had for the vendors. So vendors, their leaders, instead of working towards helping their fellow vendors, instead they got into those kind of issues, overtaxing them. Those were the issues. So today, the president is coming out to say that, okay, we have given you some time to manage your own issues, but somehow you are failing. So let us repossess as government, so that we put our own people that will be fully responsible and accountable to be the managers in these markets. So that now the responsibility of accountability and everything to do with the administration of these markets lie in the hands of government, and in this case, KCCA. That's
previously, what has been your mandate over these markets?
Definitely, when you look at the law, the 1942 Act, Market Act, very old, the mandate of establishing and managing markets is under local governments or municipalities, and in this case, KCCA. Now, along the way, because of our diversified economy, where it is both government, private, somehow vendors, because of the outcry, which I have talked about, the president looked at that and said, well, can we give these people the opportunity? But we did not lose complete touch as government. So we kept on doing our oversight role, and that's what we have been doing. But now that is changing, the policy is changing. It is saying, instead of doing the oversight role, now get in and manage as per the Market Act of 1942.
Now, let's also get this clear. We know the number of markets where KCCA has been in court over issues, says St. Balikudembe. Yes. At one time, they even celebrated victory, having won a case. Then you appealed. Each of these markets is unique in its own way.
Yes.
The fairs of Nakasero are different from those of St. Balikudembe. They are different from those of Wandegeya, which was fully constructed by government. They will be different from those of Busega, still under construction. So how are you going to ensure that the president's desire to ensure that there is no exploitation in these markets, that there are places where anyone can start and maybe later improve into something else? So what is your plan going to be like to restore sanity? Because like you've come up when there isn't sanity in these markets, but also for the vendors, I mean for the people working in these markets to say, yes, this was a better deal.
Thank you, Kirabo. I think that is a very good question. I will tell you that as the president was giving us a directive, as an institution, as KCCA, we had come up with a new markets ordinance to address some of the issues that are happening in our markets. But also, there was a member's private bill in the Parliament of Uganda, which was actually passed, and this is the market bill. Whereas it was passed by the government, I mean by the Parliament, when it was sent to the president to assent, he returned it back because he needed each and every key stakeholder to have an input, because these laws are not for the government but are for the people to streamline the operations in our markets. As I've already mentioned, the Act 1942, that is a very ancient law. It cannot address the current issues that are happening in our markets. So what we, of course, as KCCA, we are part of the key stakeholders that had input in this market bill. So there are so many of the issues that have been happening in our markets which were not being addressed in the current Market Act. So that's where we are starting from. So we want to streamline operations of our markets, but basing on the law that actually suits the current situation of markets. So that's where we are starting from. But again, when you look at the presidential directive, it is also very clear. It mandates us to handle certain issues, but also not forgetting the main issue that is always happening in markets, where vendors have always been overcharged. And the president is saying any vendor that is operating in a market should only be paying one tax, not multiple taxes. So he's saying pay one tax, and that is the market rate. So for the people, vendors who are operating in the market, who have probably been charged multiple charges, this and that, that is ceasing. And that is the start of our implementation of this. So that is ceasing. He's talking about multiple ownership of facilities in the markets. And this has been very rampant in most of our markets. That is being dealt with because now the policy has changed. So the policy is one facility, one vendor. That's what is going to be implemented. So that the bigger populace that is looking, more especially our informal sector, who are looking for low-cost worker spaces where they can be able to operate, more especially the stratas, can be able to access some of these working spaces and be able to start working. Then the other issue is about the landlords in markets. You've heard of this, where people used to have multiple facilities in the markets and then overcharging their sub-tenants. That has already ceased. So we are saying the people are going to benefit more as a result of the presidential directive of KCCA taking over management and administration, direct management and administration. So these are some of the things that we are starting with to implement, and we have already started the implementation. And then when the law is finally assented to, the bill finally becomes a law, that will really give us a breathing space in streamlining the operations in our markets.
Now, Kenya, this sounds easy but very complicated. For example, how are you going to handle the issue of people owning multiple stores? There are some markets where these stores were built by the people themselves. They had the association, they had contribution, and they said, well, you will have your store, I have my store. And it is personal property, despite the fact that now you're repossessing these markets. I see this calls for a lot of legal issues. It calls for a lot of resistance as well. And most of when we see that some of these people are saying, for us, we shall stay in the market, run our offices, we may not do the administrative work and collection, but we shall still have these. And already even one interesting thing, I've learned that even much as many of the administrators that were acting handed over, many are still a problem as well. So I see it's an uphill task. It involves legal issues as well. It's very challenging, to be real.
Yes, you're very right, Mr. Kirabo. It's really an uphill task, but we must ensure that we get over it. One of the things that I need to tell you is that it is very true. There was that time when vendors were given the mandate to invest in the redevelopment of these markets, a market like Nakawa, market like Bugorobi. That is very true. But of course, we have a task force that is handling some of these issues. The good thing is that we have the Attorney General Board who is guiding on the legalities of the matter. But again, one thing that we need to look at is that whereas these people are given the mandate to construct on this land, the government land, there are some markets like St. Kudembe where people were given lease for 15 years, which actually got expired. Now, in some other markets like in Nakawa, Bugorobi, people were never given lease to do so. So the Attorney General is going to guide in this matter, how best we can go over it, but also we may, in some instances, we may have to do some bit of compensation. Because the first directive of 25th September 2020, which His Excellency gave, he talked about it as well. He said for those that had invested some little money, they can be compensated. So that is an option that we can also look at it, but also majorly the guidance that we are going to get from the Attorney General regarding the legalities in this area will really help us to overcome some of these challenges.
Okay, well, now when you talk about issues of compensation, I think that brings in an aspect of relief, because has been the question. Now let's go to the politics. You see, I don't know, this market thing, our viewers, it's been very complicated. And I don't know if this is going to be the solution to the problems in the markets. At one time, we were planning for them to have elections. Then we had there you appointed people, or they came from State House, or they came from KCCA. We don't know where they came from, the likes of Susan at St. Kudembe. Then boo, Kayongo kwenda huko. Now this is the new. This politics in the markets, how, or we know you're technical people. You're technocrats, for you do what you're doing, but how are we going, because it is one of the issues that has also created instability in these markets. This fraction is beating this one has a good policy, this one is fighting it. How can we handle the politics in these markets? Go to Nakasero, go to St. Kudembe. St. Kudembe has a lot of politics in it. That's why I was happy when the ED said some of the markets you have to go slow, like St. Kudembe and Nakasero. So how do we, or how are you intending to handle this process so there is a smooth transition? The staff cases sends to the market. We don't see heavy police deployment that even makes us fear enter markets, because you've brought people to run these markets, and because of the insecurity and the politics, you have to have heavy deployment. Now who is going to come and buy in a place where the situation is so tense?
Thank you, Mkuruchewa. I think one thing that we need to understand and appreciate is that the delay on our side to either come up with the new registration was really a very big challenge. I have already hinted about the market bill, which His Excellency has actually accepted to sign when it comes back from the Parliament. In the current Market Act, the one I've talked about of 1942, does not have any provision for vendors' leadership in markets. And this was only addressed in the new market bill, as well as in our draft market KCCA market ordinance. So when it comes to the issues to do with the leadership, there was no legal basis for us to have them officially in the markets. That's why when His Excellency gave the directive of 25th September 2020, he guided that by then the association leaders set aside so that we have new leadership interim. And these leaders we have always been referring to them as interim leaders, because they were not fully sanctioned by the law. And that's why we are saying if we can be able to get this market bill assented to and it becomes an act, then there we shall be well guided on how leadership comes in office. Now, in an instance where there is a vacuum, everybody would wish to come up as a king. And that's what has been happening in our markets. A reason why you are talking about the politics. But now with the new bill being assented to, we have streamlined that area, where it does talk about how a leader comes in office, how he is elected, some of the challenges that the leadership will be facing and how they can be resolved within the law. So with the politics, once our bill becomes an act, becomes a law, that will be dealt with. Because now there was a big gap. Everybody, and because of the monies that used to be in the markets, which people used to collect, that used to cause a lot of issues. Finding one faction that is in leadership, every time the other one that is on opposition, they kept on fighting. But it was because of that vacuum, which we think by coming of this law, that vacuum will be filled. And then we shall be able to handle. But also, the guidance is very clear. If the guidance is saying let technical people be in charge, now it means that is purely government. Now there is no faction A or B that will be versing each. So that is not there.
They have all lost out in this.
Yes, and the government has directed, by the way, that when it comes to them forming, in fact the president guided, they can associate in their circles so that they are able to prepare these other government programs like a Myoga, like a parish development model. So they will be free at that level. But when it comes to technical issues, which have always been causing issues like revenue collection in markets, that is going to be purely done by the technical people. And that has always been the one of the issues that has actually caused a lot of tensions in these markets. So we hope our vendors, all of us on board, our markets, vendors should be able to work amicably and be able to earn a living for themselves.
Well, we are still discussing issues of KCCA repossessing markets in Kampala that have been public markets, because in Kampala we have a number of markets. We have personal or private markets. There, KCCA is not repossessing these markets. We have those that belong to Owakabaka wa Uganda. Those are also not part. So we are only looking at the 16 public markets where previously you had traders running their fairs. At one time there were tenderers running these. But just to remind you, you can be part of the talk of discussion this morning by simply sending me a message on that number on your screen, that's 0709 60 2592. I'll be reading out your message. Don't call on my line, please. You interrupt me when I want to read these messages. Kindly do not call on this line. Thank you so much. Just send a message and I'll be reading out your message to viewers. SMS messages are what I'll begin with. So if you don't have data, if you don't have a smartphone, use that phone and you'll be able to still have your views here. Now, Bukenya.
Yes.
This is another interesting one. They are raising trust issues. That these could be bad, maybe not very effective. Have you ever heard of this saying, the devil you know is better than the angel you've never seen?
Yes.
Men are saying, but KCCA, okay, prove to us what they have done, and we should be excited that when they come in here, things are going to be very different. Now, maybe with those associations, you would somehow plan to strike, then they give up upon something. But KCCA, they will just go for deployments. It's going to be, there are more darker clouds that are going to be surrounding people working in markets than what they have been going through. So they have simply jumped from a flying pan into the fire.
I don't think that is going to be like that. I think what vendors want is service. That's what they want, good service. And that is what, as an institution, we are supposed to do. Kirabo, you remember, KCCA, or even KCCA, KCC then, has never been directly managing these markets. When KCC was still there, they were managing markets through tenderers, right? So there was no direct management. Then from tenderers, they gave to associations, the likes of Mr. Kayongo and Slower in St. Barikudembe. And you see, when they were also given that mandate, vendors kept on crying. If they had maybe settled down and probably there are no issues that were arising from these markets, maybe we would say yes. And probably the president would not have come out to say no, now this should stop, these association leaders. But it's because maybe when they were given that mandate to handle their own affairs, they did not do the way the president expected them to do. So this is going to be the first time for KCC or government to directly manage these markets. And this is what I need to tell you. A person that is working on orders is totally different from a person that is telling you, I was brought by my people in the market. And that's where probably you've always seen those kind of strikes coming up. But in this case, what I want to emphasize to our viewers and our market vendors fraternity is that if we come in and give them that much required service, do you really expect them to strike? Why? Because their main issue is about coming to work, not being exploited. They want to earn a living. That is their main interest. And as long as we can deliver that, everything will be okay. And they will enjoy and they will be able to prosper. And that's what we are bringing to them. So this business of saying maybe we are jumping from a flying car to fire, that is not there. We are here to deliver that good service as mandated by the Constitution, to manage. And the act, the current Market Act, that is actually what we have come to do, because we have not been doing it. This is the first time government is coming in to directly manage these markets.
Our viewers are still looking at KCC area possessing markets here in Kampala. There are about 16 in number that have been public markets, however, under various administrations from this association of people working in these markets. Now, you've rightly assured us that this is an institution, you have disciplinary measures and all that, accountability, but also let's better understand. You see, many times, KCCA has promised, here we come to you, we are doing things different. But one of the things that later amuse us is, because you're technical, sometimes you think what is applicable, yet and you want to implement it, yet it's not practical. And there is a belief that sometimes you work in isolation and leave the people you've come to plan for, number of projects. So with this new wave, what channels you have to ensure that you move in tandem with these people? We avoid resistance, but you move in tandem and you get their opinions, their views. They know how to work in markets better than any of you, I want to believe. Yes, you can manage finance, you can have this policy, but this inclusionness, how are you looking at it at such a time than saying we come with the power? Because of course, what would a woman who sells potatoes, tomatoes do to a KCC official?
Thank you so much. Allow me to talk about this. When our executive director came, she introduced what we call Smart City. And understand Smart City, we have an acronym called TIP. TIP is technology, infrastructure, but the last one is people. Okay? So whatever we are doing as an institution, whatever we are going to be doing as KCC in the market specifically now, is that we want to close the gap that might have been there. Engaging our people. We want to have that touch. The service that is coming to the vendors when we are directly in touch. And that's what the management at KCC is doing, ensuring that we work closer with our people.
Okay.
That will bring sanity. That will not bring any issues that have always been there. Because as long as we are going to work closely with our people, then the people should be able to do their business in that amicable environment. That's what we want to bring. Now, regarding these other technical issues, they should be technical, but technical for the well-being of our people. So that's what we are bringing. So this issue of saying maybe we are far away, we are introducing our technical issues and then we are forgetting our people, that is not there. We are instead coming closer to our people that we are supposed to deliver the services to. So I believe, and to our viewers who are watching, I believe with the support from all our key stakeholders, our market vendors should be able to transform their lives.
Well, I want to thank you so much. That is Bukenya Henry, Head of Commercial Services, KCC. Thank you so much for your time.
You're most welcome.
And of course, I believe there's so much that you've learned, that this is in good faith to improve the welfare and the livelihoods of people working in these markets. Well, I'll leave you with an interview that I had with Dr. Patrick Akabwai, who is the head of infectious diseases at Baylor, Uganda, regarding pandemic preparedness. We know we are going through a hard time, but we've also been able to make some success. So how best can we move on? And then we will be learning more through this interview as well regarding issues of health and how best we can fight pandemics.
This weekend on UBC.
There is what you call love and there is what love is. When you love somebody, it costs you. When you lust after somebody, it costs the other person. When I say I love you, I'm saying I'm seeking for what is good for you at my expense.
Lord, I lay down my life.
I lay down my life. In other words, I pay the bill. Whatever it costs to love you, I pay the bill.
Now, a certain gentleman is standing up to leave.
It's okay. That's what I mean. When there is no love, you easily throw tantrums because you're used to control. You're used to manipulation. And this is where the man is. This is where parenting fails because love is not. And even the woman doesn't understand love.
This weekend on UBC.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
I'm Kirabo, Nyonyintono. Thank you for being with us. Today, we are going to be looking at how prepared we are when it comes to issues of pandemics. And like it is the expert voice program I happen to be having, that is Dr. George Patrick Akabwai, who is an infectious disease specialist at Baylor College, Uganda. Doctor, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Well, Doctor, when we talk about a pandemic, this is a word that is very common with people in the profession. That is the medical fraternity. But to the person who is joining us at this time, what are we referring to?
Thank you very much. The word pandemic is derived from Greek. So it denotes, pan denotes all. Then demos denotes people. So in terms of context, a pandemic in this case is a disease that involves all people, and in this case we're talking about maybe all over in a country and beyond. So usually a disease that is widely spread in a country, but most importantly a disease that transcends borders. So we're talking about diseases like the COVID-19 that was experienced by all the countries in the world. So So that is what a pandemic means. So a pandemic is a disease of international interest and has far-reaching effects that, that certainly involve people all over the world.
Now that well-defined pandemic, now there also comes in something very common of late, that is preparedness. So when we refer to pandemic preparedness, then what does that entail?
Absolutely. So we have experienced a pandemic. We are still experiencing the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and most recently we have the Ebola pandemic. And it goes without saying that we ought to be prepared. There have been a lot of far-reaching effects related to these pandemics, and certainly in terms of preparedness, we are talking about systems in place that must be instituted to ensure that we contain the pandemic. So it's a comprehensive plan, so to speak, to ensure that we prepare for the current pandemic, but also we always need to be prepared for even future possible hazards or pandemics.
You've brought in something very interesting, which is plan.
Yes.
Now also, that brings me to ask, with the definition of a pandemic, then what we mean by preparedness, why is a pandemic preparedness plan very important?
Oh, a plan is very, very important. Failing to plan is planning to fail, as the adage goes. So we certainly ought to prepare to manage pandemics because they have far-reaching effects. So the plan is the real work that you intend to do in as far as containing the pandemic is concerned. So it's comprehensive. It ranges from roles at a higher level, at the leadership level, at the facility level, at the community level, because we even in the community have a huge role to play in as far as containing a pandemic is concerned. So all those put together, political involvement, of course, the logistics, the finances that are involved in managing a pandemic, all those need to be planned for. So the plan, in short, is really a kind of constellation of strategies to put in place to be able to manage to contain a pandemic and its potential effects.
Now, rightly talking about a plan, what are some of the tactics, the systems that we put in place to ensure that the general public can adhere to them to ensure that we manage, contain, fight off this pandemic?
Yes, so quickly, when you have a pandemic, first and foremost, you must have a team of people you're going to work with. So like I already alluded to, it ranges. I mean, it can start from a higher level at the leadership level. So for the case of Uganda, we work, Ministry of Health being at the center of it all, representing the central government, but we also have partners. World Health Organization is extremely important in managing pandemics. The US government, the political leadership, the district leadership. So at all levels, the health facilities, the community structures. So we have the non-government organizations. So we have a multitude of players that come in handy in as far as managing a pandemic is concerned. So usually these teams have to work together to ensure that each of their concerns are addressed. So one of the key strategies is through a multi-sectoral dialogue to ensure that we collectively manage this. So the tried and tested strategy in as far as managing a pandemic is concerned is usually the multi-sectoral. So WHO will set guidance. Of course, the Ministry of Health will come in and give additional guidance. CDC will also give the same. Civil society will give the same. The community also will contribute to the same, because at the end of the day, it has to be workable. It certainly has to be something that is owned by everybody to be able to implement the management of the pandemic.
Now, currently we are having an Ebola pandemic. What learnings do we pick from the COVID-19 that we should still hold on to at such a time?
Oh yeah, so Ebola is coming in at a time when we are slowly recovering from the far-reaching effects of COVID-19. So in terms of spread, there are quite some similarities in this. These are both infectious diseases and have similar modes of transmission. So we have learned a great deal from COVID-19 because of the preparedness plan that was established that worked quite well, that included at the higher level, I mean, one of the extreme measures was actually a lockdown. A lockdown is usually an extreme measure which is meant to contain a rapidly spreading infection. So that was instituted, and not only in Uganda but in many other countries. So that was one of the strategies that has even been applied in the current Ebola outbreak that we have in parts of Mubende, so the Mubende region, Mubende and Kasanda region. So that is one of them. But I think most importantly to me is the people. It's risk communication. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we really focused, the government focused a lot of attention on managing prevention, particularly infection prevention and control. Prevention is better than cure. These diseases carry a very, very high mortality. The likelihood of dying is quite high. So the lowest hanging fruit really that protects us is prevention. So most of the interventions were focused towards infection, prevention, and control. So we are still saying, even in the Ebola epidemic or pandemic, let's keep washing our hands, because that has an effect of making the virus less potent. Let's, where we have not said stop wearing masks. So with Ebola, it's a bit different because for it, it's through droplets and splashes. Somebody with Ebola could sneeze in your face and you actually have a higher risk. So a lot of similarities, because even in the spread, the president used to emphasize the soft parts, so the eyes, the hands, the eyes, the nose, the mouth. So those are the parts that we need to protect. But with Ebola, even the skin, so any skin openings need to be certainly protected. Issues around hand shaking, hugs and so on would certainly increase your risk of getting Ebola. And we learned that through COVID as well. So it looks like it's something that we may need to get used to, that you can still be cordial enough to say hello to somebody. In fact, even when we were being brought up, we were told that if you're addressing elders, I think you show more respect by bowing and saying hello to them without necessarily shaking their hands. But this is something behavioral. It's something that I think is not something you can impose immediately, but I think we certainly need to understand that these times dictate for that. And whereas we want, it's typically African to shake hands and hug, under the circumstances we may not be able to be encouraged to do that. But certainly COVID-19, the experience that we had then has helped us pick up very fast, because we're promoting the same. We're saying, wash your hands, don't congregate, do not touch body fluids of potentially infectious material. So again, specifically for the worst hit districts, there has been a lockdown to restrict people's movement, because this is movement. And again, the president guided and said it is the Ebola it is the people who move the Ebola. Ebola does not move on its own. It's the people that move Ebola. So contain them, but talk to them. They need to understand the reason why they are held. Of course, this has a lot of far-reaching effects, but I think for us, the most important right now is to stay alive and keep healthy. So let's follow the SOPs. So one of the ways we have continued to train health workers on the standard operating procedures, and these are universal, and they have, I think they will go a long way in enabling us to curb the effects of Ebola as well.
Well, still talking about Ebola, Doctor, shed more light, a little more light on our Ebola preparedness strategy.
Yes, so certainly there has been a lot, and the Ministry of Health, again, being at the center stage, working together with partners, World Health Organization, UNICEF, the US government, the government of Uganda, other sectors in the government of Uganda, partners, implementing partners, Baylor, IDI, all those have certainly helped quite a lot in putting this together. So we have a preparedness plan that is highly structured and again speaks to the different sectors. So they are at a higher level, so they are at strategic level, issues around governance, issues around appropriation of funds. I know recently the minister was really appealing for more funding for the sector. So strategies at the level of the health facilities, because these are the places that people are likely to go to. So again, there is a comprehensive preparedness plan that has been instituted at that level. Then most importantly, the community, because the community has a huge role in as far as management of this pandemic is concerned. So there's risk communication and community engagement happening at, again, those levels. The district leadership is so much involved, the local leaders are so much involved, and certainly with this concerted effort, I have no doubt that we should be able to contain this, this pandemic if we all do what we're expected to do.
Well, that brings me to another interesting question regarding pandemic preparedness. Now, Doctor, do you think we are prepared in case of a reoccurrence of COVID-19? Do you think we are at it, and maybe the effects therefore would be very minimal?
So that is an interesting question. In as far as preparedness is concerned, I may not have a straight answer, because the dynamics may be different, because I mean, what defines, because what we worry about more is the mortality, the deaths that arise from some of the pandemics. But also, of course, we now know that the economy has been badly hit, not just in our country, but everywhere else. So if you look at it from that kind of lens, it's a bit of a tough one. But I think everybody has a role to play. I think every one of us should play their role to prepare as much as possible to ensure that we do not have a repeat of what happened to us during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the same messages that the Ministry of Health and partners share on the standard operating procedures, I think should be able to enable us deal with any emerging pandemic in the event that it occurs. But of course, the science also plays in here, because we do not know what kind of variant it is. Some variants really kill so bad, so we just really try as much as possible to ensure that we do what is recommended by the Ministry of Health, and wait and see, and see how we're able to manage. But just for purposes of reassurance, there are systems in place already. Even before we got the Ebola pandemic, there were already teams that were the global health security teams supported by the US government and the government of Uganda. So Baylor, Uganda, and the Infectious Diseases Institute have had a program already on global health security, border security in terms of health. So there's already, that program has already been running, and I'm sure that if given the adequate support, together with the support from the Ministry of Health and from Government of Uganda and other partners like WHO, UNICEF, I think we should be able to work together to contain a potential resurgence of COVID-19 or any other pandemic or public.
Definitely. Now, Doctor, we know that in pandemic preparedness, one of the key things is having the right information. When we look at how we've handled information flow, enabling it to trickle to the last person who needs this information, how do you think we have performed?
From experience, I must commend the government, the Ministry of Health, so much for particularly focusing their attention on risk communication and community engagement, because that is where they have really tried as much as possible to channel the information. So IEC materials have been all over the place. I know in mass media we have a lot of information about COVID-19, about Ebola. And beyond that, people are on the ground. People are in the field. There are surveillance teams everywhere in this country, leveraging on the already existing structures. We have the village health teams, the VHTs, that are doing a tremendous job at the grassroots. We have involvement of the local leadership. We have involvement of the opinion leaders, involvement of the religious leaders. Remember, there was a case of an unfortunate incident in Kassanda where a body was exhumed, and the religious leaders really had to come in here to address some of those loopholes, because those would potentially get us into deep trouble. So that engagement, I think, has done a great deal, has really gone down to the lowest of the, to the lowest of the communities, and I think certainly it could get better. With further support, I'm sure this could get better. I'm not saying this 100%, but I think they have done a commendable job, and I think with additional support, they should be able to even do a better job. So we are the community. Now the onus is on us to ensure that we implement what is being guided.
Now, Doctor, you've talked about community. We currently having Ebola. How do we promote more compliance? Because at a certain point we find a bit of resentment. At a certain time we find a bit of really people knowing that this can save them, but a little bit sometimes of lack of information. Sometimes these are slightly politicized. Some we have cultural issues, some we have like the barrier issue talked of. So how do we promote compliance that people now look at these measures, because of course they have an economic impact at times. If you tell someone not to open their shop past certain period of time, so how do we better do? What more can we do?
So I think the quick answer to that is let's comply. None of us wants to be locked down. None of us wants to be restricted. So I think it's really, it should start, I mean, it should start with me. So if I know that I am not feeling well and I am walking out of here and I know that I can potentially infect others, then I think I am not being responsible. So knowledge is power, and I think knowledge has been provided to the population. The radio coverage in our country has tremendously improved, so people listen to radio, people have some print media, people watch TV, you know, so there is a lot of engagement. I mean, there are physical community engagements. So I feel like this information has really trickled down. So I know, it's being kind of challenged by our myths and misconceptions, our cultural backgrounds, our religious norms, perhaps. But these are potentially dangerous. So I think we need to get a common point of understanding that we can still continue to live a normal life with while following the universal. Because if we should stop thinking about just ourselves, we should think about ours, like collectively, because a lockdown arises when the cases are too many. But if there are few cases, then you're less likely going to hear about that. So if everybody cooperates, and which is the case now happening in the Mubende area, because of a lot of effort and talking and engaging people are now beginning to realize that, oh, if the lockdown is to be lifted, then we have to do what we have to do. And the data will show, and if the cases are contained, certainly. But you see, as long as we have other pockets of infection, it's in Mubende, and now we are hearing it's in Jinja. The next time we could hear Arua or Moroto. That is not a very nice trend. So we certainly need to be vigilant and support. Let's all be a part of this. It is not government. It's not a government program. I know there are misconceptions out there, but we should not politicize this, because when we lose a loved one, it's not about the politics. You're hurting a soul. You're taking out somebody who could, who could add value to this country. So we need to look at it at that level, and not only just keep it to, oh, it has to be, this is most likely politicized. I mean, we made a lot of mistakes in the COVID pandemic. We politicized it at one point. Some leaders politicized it, and it had far-reaching effects. And we lost a lot of people. So we do not want a repeat of that.
Well, as we come to the end of this, Doctor, in a minute, let me have your parting shot to the communities, to individuals, and of course the powers that pull the shots in this struggle.
Thank you very much. So I would like to thank you, first and foremost, for having me here to communicate to the viewers out there about the need to stay alive. We need to all stay alive. Let's support the government systems in place, the Ministry of Health, the partners, the government of Uganda, and the communities that are so much involved. The local leaders have come in really to support this program, to ensure that we first stay alive and we're able to go ahead, go on with our business. So let's adhere to the standard operating procedures as guided, and avoid unnecessary engagements that would potentially increase rates of infection. So let's stay alive. And I think there's a lot more that we can achieve when we are alive.
Well, thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you. Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono. Keep it with us. Let's say so.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here. In the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's what you feel in the gentle caress of tropical wind from the mountaintops. And the glow in your heart from a warm neighborly invite. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking to the taste of food that takes you on a journey. In the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the pearl of Africa.
Said I'm fired up. I'm sorry, your time's up. I see the top and I climb up. Came from the ashes, I rise up.
The FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022. The wait is over.